According to Newsweek.com, Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said on Saturday that a GOP condition to limit the Federal Reserve's emergency lending powers remains the only significant hurdle to passing a $900 billion bipartisan relief package. Lawmakers failed to pass the economic package on Friday, but avoided government shutdown after President Trump signed a two-day funding bill that will allow Congress to reconvene on Sunday. The GOP proposal, introduced by Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, would stop the Federal Reserve from restoring emergency lending programs, which previously aided small and medium-sized businesses along with state and local governments starting January 1st. And according to the Financial Times, lawmakers sparred over Republicans' plans to curb the Federal Reserve's crisis lending powers over the weekend. This comes as talks over the $900 billion stimulus bill came down to the line ahead of a Sunday night funding deadline. Earlier in the week, congressional leaders insisted that a deal was close on what will be the second largest economic relief package in U.S. history, trailing only the $2.2 trillion CARES Act. But negotiations hit a stumbling block on Thursday when Pat Toomey, a Republican senator from Pennsylvania, sought to insert language into the legislation that will prevent the Fed from reviving emergency credit facilities that are due to expire at the end of the year. But first, be sure to subscribe to my channel, click the notifications bell, and let's get this video to 5,000 likes if you think that Congress should pass more stimulus relief.
To my Republican colleagues of that, during that late last few weeks in July, in those conference calls in August, is before we authorize any more money, before we further mortgage our children's future, why don't we first repurpose and redirect what we already passed? Because what we passed very quickly. Because we had to do something massively, and we did something massively so that markets wouldn't seize, so that the people, the individuals that were out of work through no fault of their own, the businesses that were shut down through no fault of their own, could get financial relief. And so we came together unanimously, we did that. But doing it fast, doing it massively, I certainly knew it was going to be far from perfect. And when we found out the federal government actually has a hard time spending $3 trillion because over the course of a number of months, they didn't spend $1 billion for small businesses, $100 billion for education, tens of billions of dollars for vaccines and testing and agriculture and childcare. We offered that on the floor. 52 Republicans voted to proceed to that bill. Democrats just said no. I felt it was a crisis, an emergency, and we shouldn't have been turning our backs on these people that are suffering in September. Democrats said no. All they had to do was say yes. They couldn't take yes for an answer. And Madam President,
Newsweek goes on to say that Republicans say that those lending programs, which were initially funded under the CARES Act in March, are no longer necessary in any emergency case. Toomey told reporters, what this does, it says that nobody can revive or create a duplicate of the programs that received CARES Act money. We're not changing the role of the Fed at all. The legislation remains on the books, and the Fed's authority will continue. It is not the role of our central bank, the Fed, to engage in fiscal policy, social policy, or allocating credit. Democrats argue that Toomey's proposal would limit the Fed's broader authority, and have called it an attempt to impede President like Joe Biden's incoming administration. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said during a caucus call on Saturday afternoon that it's a way to say to Joe Biden, we're tying up our hands no matter what comes down to the pike. Schumer echoed those concerns from the Senate floor, saying Senator Toomey's new proposal potentially prohibit the Treasury and the Fed from setting up new emergency lending facilities moving forward, greatly reducing their ability to respond to economic crisis.
saying that the road to total national bankruptcy is paved with good intentions. I'm sure that's true. I don't question the good intentions of any member of this body. We all want to provide the relief. We all want to relieve suffering. We all want to help fellow Americans that are hurting through no fault of their own. When we talk about suffering, we use words. We don't look at numbers very often. The Senator from Vermont has spouted a few numbers. Let me quote a couple. Let me just kind of lay it out. I didn't have enough time to do a chart, so I'll try and go through this slowly. But I think it's important to put this all in perspective. prior to the COVID recession, we had the record number of Americans employed at the end of December 2019. Just under 159 million Americans were employed. By April, 2 months into the pandemic, 3 months into the pandemic, employment had dropped to 133 million. That's a loss of over 25 million jobs. 25 million, which is why we acted in a bipartisan fashion to provide relief for those people, 25 million who lost their jobs. Now, the good news, it's hard to keep the American economy down when you don't overtax, when you don't overregulate. So in November, the latest figures we have, there are now 150, just shy of 150 million Americans employed again. Now, I realize some are underemployed, but still, you have 150 million Americans.
Senator Chuck Schumer also added, what he's proposing is not about helping the American people. It's about tying the hands of the next Treasury Secretary and the next Fed Chairman in a true emergency. I hope our Republican friends can agree to compromise here. Senator Toomey's legislation is the only significant hurdle to completing an agreement, and Republicans need to make a decision. But in defense of the proposal, Toomey told Democrats on Saturday they were not making permanent changes to law, and said that spending from the CARES Act was supposed to end at the end of the year. Republicans said Saturday that they would stand firm in their position, with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell telling colleagues during a conference call that he wouldn't budge on the language. McConnell reportedly said on the call, I think we need to stick with where we are. Senate Majority Whip John Thune, the Republican from South Dakota, also told reporters, I'm hoping if they can announce a deal today, it can be written up and voted on. Best case scenario will be sometime tomorrow, but more likely probably Monday. But according to the Financial Times, early on Saturday, Mitch McConnell, the Republican Senate Majority Leader, called for Democrats to compromise. He said, there is a kind of gravitational pull here in Congress, where unless we are careful, any major negotiation can easily slide into an unending catalog of disagreements. Let's guard against that, he said. We've had productive discussions this past week, but the American people cannot feed their families or pay their bills with Congress's good faith discussions. They need us to act. We need to conclude our talks, draft legislation, and land this plane. Folks, tell me if you agree with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in the comments down below. So folks, as of right now, Congress is still negotiating back and forth on the next stimulus relief bill, and for the government spending bill. Do you believe that our politicians in Congress will be able to put away the political differences and pass more stimulus relief? Leave a comment down below saying yes or no.